I sold your old Cadillac for $40,000. Tara said it like she was telling me the weather, ladling gravy in our Detroit kitchen while the steam rose off the pot, trying to leave the room before I could. My hand found the back of a chair because the floor felt like it tipped. The oven timer dinged once. Small, cheerful, wrong. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from, because somewhere, someone knows what it's like to watch a lifetime get sold with a smile. I built that car, 1976 Cadillac Eldorado, cotillion white with the fire mist pinstripe, across 6 winters after GM let me go. Every bolt was a night shift I didn't take, every stitched seam a Saturday I traded away. When you don't have a pension, you build one out of steel and leather. Mine smelled like vinyl and old aftershave, and it paid me back in quiet, 40 grand. I asked, even though I'd heard her just fine. Tara's mother, Marla, had already set the table with the good plates, and the way she hovered told me I wasn't invited to my own life. Tara wiped the ladle clean like she was erasing a chalkboard. Kyle needed a bridge, she said, meaning her brother, meaning the bar with the neon sign that flickered KYL when the wind came off the river. We'll make it back by Christmas. She shrugged, like December was a cash machine. I kept my voice even. Where's the title? It was just paper, she said, and the words landed like a dropped wrench. She turned to the sink. The water ran. She didn't look at me. I went to the hall closet where a cedar brick kept the moths honest. The lockbox spot was empty, cedar and air. I stood there until the smell went sharp and empty in my nose. Back in the kitchen, I slid my binder onto the counter. It's a humble thing, cracked blue vinyl, pages plastic sleeved and numbered because that's how I keep what's mine. I flipped to the totals, $62,417 in receipts, chrome trim, NOS taillight lenses, rebuilt transmission, the big hit from the upholstery guy in Hamtramck who still staples by hand. I kept the Sept 14 appraisal tucked behind the restoration photos, $92,000 written in blue ink that still hadn't faded. I turned the page and let the numbers sit between us like a witness. Tara didn't touch the binder. She poured herself a glass of Pinot and said, "It's not about numbers, it's about family." "Then why am I finding out after?" I asked. It came out softer than I expected. I wasn't angry yet, I was precise. My phone buzzed on the counter. For a second I thought it was the oven timer again. It was the bank app, flashing a bright little celebration I didn't feel. Incoming wire, $40,000. Description, vehicle. I stared at the word long enough for it to stop meaning anything. "Which dealer?" I asked. "Who handled the transfer?" "Kyle's friend took care of it," she said, and that was meant to be the end of that. She raised her glass toward the dining room where Marla hummed and laid out silver, happy as a church bell. From the living room TV, a commercial jangled about holiday blowouts, the sound of cheap and fast. "Keys," I said. "Hand me my garage keys." She reached into a ceramic bowl by the microwave, the one we toss coupons in, and dropped a ring into my palm. They were warm from her pocket. I walked to the garage. The overhead bulb hummed to life like it resented the work. The bay was a white rectangle where the Eldorado used to sleep. Dust outlines on the concrete made a ghost of the car. I crouched and pressed 2 fingers to the floor like I could take a pulse. When I came back inside, Tara had the bottle open and her phone face down. "Don't make this ugly," she said. I set the binder on the table, opened to the appraisal, and slid it toward her. We just did. The next morning, November 8th, Detroit looked pale and punished. First snow of the year. It settled in quiet drifts along Larned Street, like a sheet pulled over a body. Out front, the driveway was smooth white, a blank canvas where the Eldorado used to rest. I stood at the window with my coffee gone cold, watching the neighbor's maple bow under ice. The garage light still burned from the night before. I hadn't turned it off, couldn't. The bulb glowed against the emptiness like it was keeping vigil. When I was younger, engines were prayers. My father taught me that every machine tells the truth if you listen long enough. The Eldorado told mine. About every layoff, every overtime hour that saved a bolt, every night I worked with frozen fingers while Tara texted from warm sheets. It wasn't just a car. It was the pension GM never gave me. Now the pension had been sold to cover someone else's bad whiskey and unpaid taxes. At 10 a.m., Tara breezed in from her jog, red cheeks, earbuds in, humming. She smelled like peppermint gum and indifference. "You're still sulking?" she said, kicking off her sneakers. "Where's the bill of sale?" I asked. "Stop acting like a victim, Mark. It was my decision, too. That too hit like a cold wrench to the temple." "You forged my signature," I said. Her eyes darted, a tiny flinch, fast as an ignition spark. Then the smirk came back. "You always keep things. You'll survive." She headed upstairs. That's when I noticed the appraisal folder sitting slightly open on the counter. I slid it toward me, flipped it open. Still there, $92,000, signed by G. Latimer Appraisal Co., dated Sept 14. I traced the ink with my thumb until the number blurred. I thought of all the small ways a man disappears, not in one blow, but in 100 little transactions where nobody asks his name. At 2:15 p.m., I drove to Kyle's Bar on Jefferson. It's called the Pit Stop, though most folks call it the Money Pit. Neon sign flickering, KYL half dead. Inside smelled like bleach, fryer oil, and bad math. Football game on TV, maybe 10 people at the counter. Kyle was behind the bar, apron dusted with salt. "Mark," he said, too bright, too fake. "Man, Tara told me you'd be sore. You'll thank me later when the market dips." 40 grand was top dollar for that gas hog. I felt my jaw clench. "It wasn't yours to sell. He poured 2 whiskeys like that, fixed it. We're family. Family helps family. I didn't drink." I looked past him at the liquor license framed behind the bar, expires 12/31/2025, and thought, "You're going to need that frame for something else soon." He leaned in, lowering his voice. "Don't make this bigger than it is." Tara handled the paperwork. "Deal is clean." "What dealer?" I asked. He grinned. "You don't need the details. I left before I did something ungentlemanly." Out back, snow was turning to slush, melting in rivulets under the orange streetlight. My reflection looked warped in a puddle. I bent over and threw up the coffee I'd been living on. That night, Tara came home late. She smelled like the same cheap Pinot she'd poured yesterday. "You went to see Kyle, didn't you?" she said. "I did." "You're embarrassing yourself. I'll take that risk." When she walked off, I noticed her coat tossed over the chair. Something crinkled in the pocket. I pulled out a crumpled ATM receipt, $3,200 cash withdrawal, dated Nov 8, 10:06 a.m. The memo line said transfer. I stared at it, then folded it into my wallet. Evidence number 1. I couldn't sleep. Not that night. I sat in the garage, on the concrete where the tires used to rest. The space smelled like oil and regret. I opened my insurance binder, the one I renewed on Oct 1, naming me as sole insured. I read it front to back until the fine print started feeling personal. Then I remembered the Nest Cam. I'd installed it back in August, right above the workbench. Motion triggered, time-stamped. I pulled it up on my old laptop. At Nov 6, 4:24 p.m., there she was. Tara standing beside a flatbed with Rutherford Towing printed on the side. My caddy rolled out like a body bag, chrome glinting under a grey sky. She followed it down the driveway, holding my spare key on a green lanyard. She didn't wave goodbye. At 2:40 a.m., I opened my notepad app and typed, "Vehicle taken without consent. Appraisal attached. Owner signature missing. Peldunda Replevin." The cursor blinked, steady and slow, like it was breathing for me. A new voicemail came in around 3 a.m. Big Ray, my old foreman from GM. His voice was gravel and cigarette smoke. "Got your message. Mark, bring me the VIN rubbings and photos. If that title ain't properly signed, we can pull it back clean. Law's on your side." I saved it under evidence 2. The snow outside deepened, muting every sound. Tara slept upstairs like a woman without worry. I sat on the steps, binder beside me, staring into the dark where the El Dorado used to live. The silence had a hum to it. Mechanical, steady, patient. The kind of silence that doesn't mean defeat. I whispered to myself, "You took my car." Tara, But you just started my engine, and that was the first night I stopped loving her and started taking notes. By November 9th, I'd stopped pretending sleep was coming. Detroit mornings are grey in November, a mix of cold exhaust and broken promises. I poured myself coffee that tasted like pennies and made a list, not of feelings, of facts. Title missing. 2. Wire transfer on Nov 7. Vehicle. 3. ATM cash out on Nov 8. 4. Nest cam footage. Nov 6. Tara handing off keys. 5. My name nowhere on a bill of sale. When you've worked 30 years on a factory line, you learn to respect sequence. Torque bolts wrong. The whole engine seizes. So I followed torque order for revenge. First thing, a locks. I changed the garage keypad to 1968, the year I joined GM. Felt poetic. Then I packed what mattered. Binders, appraisals, receipts, the old photos from Labor Day parade, me leaning on the Eldo, Tara smiling like she earned it. I took them downtown to a bank box on Griswold and slid the folder inside. When I closed that drawer, it sounded like a chapter slamming shut. At 9:47 a.m., I walked into the Michigan Secretary of State office on West Grand. The clerk had silver hair and the kind of eyes that had seen every lie. I slid the VIN across the counter. Title history request, I said. She typed, frowned. You'll get the printout by Tuesday, Nov 12. Want it emailed or mailed? Both, I said. And thank you. Back home, Tara was on a Zoom call, smiling her realtor smile, the one that closes deals and buries guilt. I waited until she muted, then said, I need Dexter Motors' contact info. Her eyes twitched. Who? You said Kyle's friend handled the transfer. Dexter Motors, right? She faked confusion too fast. I might have mentioned that name, but I didn't mean, Mark, please don't start again. But she'd already started it. At noon, I called Big Ray, told him what I knew. Meet me at your shop, he said. Bring photos, that appraisal, and a steady hand. By 2 p.m., I was standing in his repair bay. The smell of old grease and iron comforted me like a church pew. Ray wiped his hands on a rag, leaned over the VIN rubbings I'd brought. That's my stamp, he said. No way they can say it's not your build. You've got provenance. He jotted his name and date, Nov 9:2:47 p.m., under the photo and signed it. If that car shows up at auction, I'll swear it's yours. That was evidence number 3. On my way home, I stopped at a diner across from Dexter Motors. Small lot, crooked sign reading holiday blowouts. I sat at the window with a burnt cup of coffee. 10 minutes later, Tara's sedan rolled in. She stepped out, talked to a man in a puffy jacket, then handed him a white envelope. I took 3 photos through the fogged glass. Evidence number 4. When she came home that evening, she smelled like cinnamon candles. Her favorite trick, when guilt followed her in. She kissed my cheek, asked, You okay? I will be, I said. At 7:10 p.m., I texted our neighbor, Mrs. Dorsey, asking if she'd seen the tow truck clearly. She replied with 2 photos, Rutherford Towing logo and a shot of Tara standing by the flatbed. Timestamp 11:06:1627, the kind of proof that makes lawyers smile. Later that night, Kyle texted Tara while she showered. I saw the preview light up her phone. Mom says we'll settle this at Thanksgiving. Family fixes its own messes at the table. I read it twice. Then a 3rd time. That's when I knew how the end would look. Not in court, not in the street, but at Marla's holiday dinner, under her lace tablecloth, in front of every person who thought I was too polite to fight. I saved the text. At 8:42 p.m., I sent a new email to a title attorney named Ms. Alvarez, recommended by Ray's cousin. She replied within an hour, If your signature's missing or forged, we file replevin and quiet title, plus injunction to stop resale. Bring every document tomorrow. That night, I copied all my receipts into a new folder titled Torque Order. I slept for the first time in 3 days, not deep but deliberate. Before closing my eyes, I whispered to the dark, You sold my car, Tara, but you just bought yourself a hearing. Veterans Day, November 11th. Parades rerouted traffic downtown. The sound of brass bands bouncing off glass buildings. I walked past flags and kids holding cocoa, clutching a manila folder tighter than any marching banner. Inside were my receipts, photos, appraisal, and a quiet fury with an engine under it. My meeting with Ms. Alvarez was set for 9:30 a.m. Her office sat above a bakery on Jefferson Avenue, the kind of place that still smelled like paper and truth. She had neat handwriting and eyes that could see through drywall. "Tell me the story once," she said, not looking up from her legal pad. So I told her. The car, the sale, the forged title, the wire. I laid out the appraisal, $92,000, the nest footage, and Mrs. Dorsey's photos. When I finished, she capped her pen and said, "We start with a replevin claim. If the signature isn't yours, we can seize the vehicle before resale. Quiet title after that. You might even get attorney's fees." Her confidence was a kind of warmth. She photocopied everything, sliding me the copies in a binder marked Property Recovery, Mark Jennings vs. Dexter Motors, et al. "Do not confront them," she warned. "Paper trails, not fistfights." "You understand," I nodded, but part of me wanted to hear a door slam. Leaving her office, I drove straight to Rutherford Towing. The dispatcher was a young woman named Kayla. Tired eyes, Detroit Lions hoodie. I showed her a picture of my car. "Yeah, I remember this one," she said, flipping her clipboard. "Pick up on Nov 6, 4 p.m., delivery to Dexter Motors. Cash job, $350. She printed a copy, stamped it customer copy, and I slipped her a 20 for coffee. The smell of engine oil in that office felt more honest than my house. Next stop, Dexter Motors. I didn't go inside right away. I parked across the street at Coney and Coffee, bought the cheapest cup they had, and watched. At 11:18 a.m., Tara's grey sedan pulled into the lot. A man in a black puffy jacket met her halfway. They talked for less than a minute. He handed her a white envelope. She tucked it under her arm, glanced around, and left. My camera clicked once. "Evidence number 5, Ms. Alvarez texted back immediately after I sent it. Good, keep your distance. I'll draft letters tonight. We'll serve them by Nov 18. Patience wins courtrooms." Patience had never been my tool of choice, but I was learning. That afternoon, I stopped at Big Ray's shop again. He flipped through the VN photos, matching them to his old shop logs. "Stamped by me," he said, pointing to the indentation pattern. "If they try to claim it's not yours, I'll testify." He wrote a short statement on company letterhead. "Vehicle identification number corresponds to restoration performed under my supervision, 2019-2025, verified by original builder Mark Jennings. Daniels 11/11/2025, evidence number 6. By dusk, I had a folder thicker than my wedding album. I sat in my truck, snow drifting down, and listened to the paper creak when I turned it. It was the sound of structure, the kind a man builds when his life collapses. When I got home, Tara was setting the dining table, humming some Christmas song 2 weeks too early. She looked up. "We're having Thanksgiving at Mom's. Dress nice," she said. Like nothing was wrong. I just smiled and said wouldn't miss it. Later that night, I slipped 3 certified letters into the blue mailbox on Larn Street, one to Dexter Motors demanding preservation of property, one to the bank requesting full record of Tara's deposit, and one to Kyle's Bar and Grill. A formal notice to retain all transaction ledgers from Nov 7/11. The mailbox door clanged shut with a metallic echo that sounded almost like a gavel. Back inside, Tara poured herself another glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. "You're quiet," she said. "Just tired," I lied. In truth, I was counting. Counting receipts, counting witnesses, counting days until Nov 28. When the woman who sold my car would sit across from me at her mother's table and meet the man she thought was too patient to fight back. As I turned off the lights that night, the snow outside kept falling, quiet and deliberate, like justice, gathering weight one flake at a time. By November 12th, I'd stopped shaking. What replaced it was colder, steadier, like the hum of an idling engine that's ready to move. That morning, the title history printout from the Secretary of State arrived, a single accusing sheet of paper. It smelled like toner and betrayal. There it was in black ink. Transfer application dated Nov 6, price $40,000. Buyer listed as Dexter Motors. Then came the line that made my throat go dry. Owner signature verified. I stared at it for a full minute. Whoever had signed my name knew how my M curls, but not how my hand shakes slightly at the end. The forgery was good, too good. I pulled out an old tax form from the drawer, placed the signatures side by side. I whispered, "You didn't even press hard enough. You never knew how I hold a pen." I scanned it and sent it to Miss Alvarez. 10 minutes later, her reply came in. "That's not a signature. That's evidence. Meet me Friday. Bring your bank printouts." I knew where to get them. At First Michigan Bank, the teller knew me by name. "Mr. Jennings, you're the car guy," she said kindly. I nodded. "I need records for a wire transfer on November 7th, and any deposits or withdrawals linked to that account." She returned with 2 sheets, stapled together. There it was, $40,000 wire, description, vehicle sale. And below that, $37,500 cashier's check made payable to Kyle's Bar and Grill, issued the next morning. "Did my wife sign for this?" I asked quietly. The teller hesitated. She was the only one who came in that day. 10:31 a.m. I remember the red scarf. I thanked her, then sat in the truck, watching my breath fog the windshield. I didn't feel anger anymore, just arithmetic. Back home, Tara was on the couch, scrolling Zillow listings. "You ever think about Florida?" she asked, all sunshine and deceit. "Not lately," I said. I watched her set her phone down, screen lighting up for half a second. A text preview from Kyle. "Money hit. We're saved, bro." She caught me looking. "Don't read my messages." "I don't have to," I said. "They read themselves." She stood up. "You're making this toxic. Selling my life without asking. That's toxic." She left the room, muttering something about how I'd never understand family. Later that afternoon, I drove by the pit stop again. The help wanted sign in the window was curling at the corners, the lights dimmer. Kyle was yelling at a vendor in the parking lot. I stayed just long enough to catch the end. The dishwasher lease bounced. "You'll get paid when we reopen." I took a picture of the sign and the argument. Another line for the ledger. That evening, Miss Alvarez called. Her voice sounded calm, methodical, like she'd already seen this movie. "We'll file an injunction next week. If the dealer hasn't flipped the car, we freeze the sale. You'll get a hearing date by Novi 27. She paused. "And you said Tara's mother is hosting Thanksgiving?" "Yeah," I said. "Good. Family dinners make excellent discovery sessions." I almost laughed. "You mean ambushes?" She didn't deny it. "Just don't show your hand too early." At Gratiot Market, 2 aisles away from me, I heard Marla's voice. She was talking to the cashier on speakerphone, the way people do when they want to be overheard. "Tara handled things smart," she said. "Family doesn't let money sit in a garage." The cashier laughed. "Smart would be keeping a title clean." Marla's face stiffened. I didn't say a word. When I got home that night, Tara was asleep. Her purse lay open on the counter. I don't snoop, unless the truth needs an alibi. Inside, I found a printed text thread. At the top, a message from Kay Weller, Kyle's friend, the same name from the towing photo. It read, "Thanks, Tara. Funds received. Cars in storage till we move it. Timestamp, Novi, 8:4:02 p.m. I took a photo of the message, folded the printout back exactly as I'd found it. Later, I wrote a single line in my notebook. "They think the sale ended the story. It just opened discovery." Outside, the snow turned to freezing rain, tapping the roof in a rhythm like clockwork. A countdown. Thanksgiving was 2 weeks away, and I was going to make sure that when Marla carved her turkey, the knife would slip, right as the truth hit the table. November 16th. The morning light was weak, almost silver. The kind that makes Detroit look like it's holding its breath. I woke before dawn, checked my email, and found a single line from Timmons, an old buddy from the GM line days who now hauled cars for auction lots. "Dexter's hiding a white 76 in storage. Lot B12 off Livernois. Says it's moving deck 1. I read it twice, then a third time. The El Dorado wasn't gone. It was waiting. By 8, I was in my truck with a thermos of burnt coffee and a camera in my jacket. The Livernois storage depot sat behind a chain fence, half-collapsed sign swinging in the wind. I parked across the street, pretending to scroll my phone. A man in a blue parka unlocked the gate. Inside, row B glimmered faintly in the frost. And then I saw it. Under a grey tarp, a white tailfin caught the morning light. Just a flash, but enough. I hit record on my phone, zoomed in on the B12 placard, the faint chrome bumper peeking out. My breath fogged the lens. Timmons met me at the diner down the block. He scribbled his sworn statement on a napkin first, then transferred it neatly onto a pad from his truck. Observed white, 76 Cadillac Eldorado, lot B12, Livernois storage. Nov 16, 8:42 a.m. Dealer rep confirmed consignment date deck 1. He signed and dated it. "Keep it safe," he said. "Word is Kyle's guys trying to flip it before your paperwork hits." My stomach tightened. That was the race, my evidence versus their greed. When I got home, Tara was at the kitchen counter decorating invitations for Marla's Thanksgiving dinner. Little turkeys with gold foil. She looked up and smiled like nothing was wrong. "Mom says bring your famous pecan pie," she chirped. I smiled back. "I'll bring something sweet," I said. She didn't hear the undertone. At 2:00 p.m., I drove to Ms. Alvarez's office and dropped the diner napkin and the new statement onto her desk. She read both, nodded, and began typing. The rhythm of her keyboard was the cleanest sound I'd heard all week. "We're filing the replevin and injunction today," she said. "We'll serve Dexter Motors by Tuesday. Once the clerk stamps it, they can't move that car without violating court order." She paused, eyes narrowing. "You said Thanksgiving's the 28th? "Yeah. Good. Hearing set for Nov 27. You'll walk into that dinner with a court seal in your pocket." Her confidence was gasoline. That night, the house was quiet, except for Tara's phone buzzing on the table. A text preview from Kyle flashed before she picked it up. "Family's back on track. We'll toast you next week." I said nothing. Just logged the time, 9:04 p.m., and took a mental snapshot of her smile. At 10:15 p.m., Ms. Alvarez sent the confirmation email. Replevin and injunction filed, 11:18 a.m. Clerk stamped. Copies to follow. Prepare for service. Court hearing 11:27, 9 a.m. Attached was the case header, Mark Jennings vs. Dexter Motors et al. I stared at my name above theirs. It felt heavier than any title I'd ever held. Before bed, I opened my binder, the one Tara once called just paper. Inside were 6 new pages, the tow receipt, the bank records, Timmons' affidavit, the title history, the neighbor's photos, and the text thread printout. I whispered the order out loud. Like prayer beads, tow, bank witness, title, photos. Text. The sound calmed me. Tara came down the stairs, half asleep. "You're still up?" "Couldn't rest," I said. She reached for the faucet, poured herself water, and said, "Everything's gonna work out, Mark. You'll see." I nodded. "Oh, I see everything now." When she went back upstairs, I sat alone in the dark kitchen, watching snow gather on the windowsill. A text buzzed from Marla's family chat. "Dinner 4 p.m. sharp. Dress warm, bring gratitude." I stared at the word gratitude until it blurred. Then I typed my own reply beneath it, bringing something special. No one knew it yet. But dessert that night would be subpoenas, served warm. November 28th, Thanksgiving Day. The sky was white, cold, still. The kind of stillness before a storm. I parked 2 houses down from Marla's brick colonial at 3:55 p.m. and turned off the engine. Inside the Eldorado's glove box sat a manila envelope with a gold seal. Wayne County Court, injunction and replevin granted. The paper that changed everything. I sat there a minute, breathing in the smell of old leather and resolve. Then I took the envelope, zipped it into my coat pocket, and walked toward the house. From the porch, I could already hear laughter. Marla's high, rehearsed laugh. Kyle's booming one that always came a half-second too late. I paused at the door, brushed snow off my coat and rang the bell. Tara opened it. "There you are," she said, all sugar. Mom was starting to think you'd changed your mind. I almost did, I said. Inside, the table gleamed like a catalogue. Roasted turkey center stage. Crystal glasses catching candlelight and silver that hadn't seen daylight since Reagan. The smell was heavy with butter and performance. Marla beamed from the head of the table. Mark, so glad you made it. We're celebrating family tonight. Perfect, I said, hanging my coat but keeping the envelope close to my chest. I took the seat across from Tara. Kyle was on my left, carving into a ham like he'd earned it. Every slice, every laugh felt like a nail in a coffin that wasn't his. Yet when the plates were full, Kyle raised his glass. To smart decisions and family loyalty, he said. To lawful ones, I said. The silence was instant. Tara's smile froze. Excuse me? Kyle said, grin twitching. I set my fork down. I mean, loyalty's great, but the law, that's what keeps families honest. Marla's tone sharpened. Mark, not at the table, but I was already sliding the first photo across the table, the one Mrs. Dorsey took of the tow truck on Novice 6. Rutherford Towing printed bold on the side. Tara's hand twitched. What's this? Kyle said, frowning. Just proof, I said. Proof of what a $92,000 car looks like when it's stolen in broad daylight, Marla huffed, trying to laugh it off. You and your old car. We already talked about this, Mark. You agreed, I didn't agree, I said, sharper now. You forged. I laid down the next document, the title history, with my name copied wrong, my signature mimicked. This came from the state office. You want to know what they said? Forgery carries a 5-year sentence. Tara's wine glass shook. You're being dramatic. Dramatic, I repeated, pulling out the bank statement. Is it dramatic to notice a $40,000 wire hit your account on Nov 7 with the word vehicle? Or that the very next day you wrote a cashier's check for $37,500 to Kyle's Bar and Grill? I suppose the $3,000 of Venmo to Kay Weller was just a Christmas tip? Kyle's face turned red. You had no right. I had every right, I said. That money came from my property. You bought your silence with theft. Marla slammed her napkin down. Enough. This is Thanksgiving. That's what I'm giving thanks for, I said. For timing. And right then, the front door opened. Ms. Alvarez stepped in, calm, composed, trench coat still dusted with snow. The room went dead silent. Sorry for the intrusion, she said evenly. Mark invited me, Kyle scoffed. Who the hell? Attorney of record, she said, showing her ID. Wayne County Court granted injunction and replevin as of yesterday morning. Any attempt to sell or conceal the vehicle is now a criminal act of contempt. She placed 2 subpoenas on the table, one for Tara, one for Kyle. You've both been served. Tara's chair scraped back. You can't do this in my mother's house. I just did, Ms. Alvarez said. Kyle half stood, face flushed. You think you can threaten me in front of my family? I turned to him. You already threatened yourself, Kyle. Every receipt, every message, every lie, you built this case for me. Marla's voice trembled. This is humiliating. No, I said softly. This is accountability. The kind you can frame right next to your liquor license. Big Ray, who'd been invited as a friend, cleared his throat from the corner. He hadn't spoken until now. That VIN stamp on the Eldorado? Mine, and I'll swear to it. That car was Mark's build, every bolt of it. Ms. Alvarez handed Kyle another sheet. That's your notice to preserve all bar ledgers and account records. Non-compliance means contempt. Kyle's hand clenched around his napkin, knuckles white. You're ruining everything, Tara's voice cracked. We just needed a bridge, Mark, a few weeks. We were going to fix it. I looked at her. Bridges don't steal houses to cross rivers. The clock in the hallway ticked loud enough to fill the silence. Finally, Marla whispered, What do you want? The car, I said. The title corrected. And repayment of every dollar you laundered through your brother's bar, Kyle muttered. You'll get your damn car. No, I said, leaning forward. I'll get justice. You'll get lessons. Tara's mascara smudged as she buried her face in her hands. The smell of turkey turned sour in the air. Ms. Alvarez collected signatures for acknowledgement of service, her pen scratching quietly. Court expects compliance within 7 days, she said. When we finished, she nodded once and left. door closing behind her like a period at the end of a long sentence. No one moved. I stood, folded my napkin and said, "Thanks for dinner." And as I stepped outside into the cold, I heard Marla's voice break in the silence behind me. "What are we going to tell people?" Tara's whisper followed. "The truth, I guess." Snowflakes landed on my coat, melting into tiny silver circles. I smiled for the first time in weeks, because in that house of lies and gravy, the only thing left on the table was evidence. The next morning, November 29th, dawn crept grey through my blinds, painting the garage door in cold light. I didn't need an alarm. Justice had its own. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed, a message from Ms. Alvarez, deputy on site. "Storage lot cooperating. Meet at Livernois within the hour." I dressed slow, deliberate. The kind of dressing you do for closure, not errands. The Livernois storage depot looked smaller in daylight. Deputy Hardy, broad-shouldered and efficient, stood by the gate, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Jennings," he said, "we're about to pop the lock." The padlock snapped, the metal door groaned upward, and there she was. My Eldorado, white, perfect, quiet. Even under dust and tarp, she looked alive. Chrome glinting through the grey like forgiveness. Hardy whistled low. "That's one fine machine." Miss Alvarez was there too, bundled in a scarf that matched her tone, calm, sharp, composed. She took photos from every angle. "Dexter Motors' owner signed the stipulation," she said. "They're surrendering custody pending title confirmation. Judge's order stands. You're officially in possession again." She handed me a pen and the release form. I signed my name, steady, deliberate, every loop of that M reclaiming the one they'd forged. When I turned the key, the engine didn't. December 3rd, courtroom 3B, Wayne County. The benches creaked like old bones, and the radiator hissed with the rhythm of judgment. I'd been in hundreds of factories, but never a place that hummed with this kind of power. Miss Alvarez sat beside me, calm as a machine at idle. Across the aisle, Tara stared down at her lap, twisting a tissue until it looked like a rope. Kyle fidgeted beside her, face flushed, suit too tight across his gut. Behind them, Marla whispered prayers into a silk scarf. When the judge entered, everyone rose. I didn't look at Tara. I looked at the bench. This was where truth got talk-tested. Miss Alvarez started clean and steady. "Your Honor, this is not a marital dispute. This is a case of conversion, theft of titled property, forgery, and misappropriation of funds. The defendant, Mrs. Jennings, executed a sale without the owner's consent, forged his signature, and transferred proceeds to her brother's business." The judge glanced at her. "And you can prove this?" She opened the binder I'd built bolt by bolt. "With pleasure. Exhibit A, the Sept 14 appraisal, $92,000 in blue ink. Exhibit B, the title history with the fake signature. Exhibit C, Rutherford towing invoice. Nov 6, Exhibit D, bank records showing $40,000 wire. Nov 7, then the chain of deposits, $7,500 to Kyle's Bar and Grill, $9,850 cash withdrawals, $3,000 Venmo to Kay Weller. She didn't just show numbers. She told their story. "Every line here," she said, "represents a choice, not a mistake. They didn't sell a car. They sold this man's retirement, his pension in chrome." The judge looked over his glasses. "Mrs. Jennings, did you sign these documents?" Tara's voice barely carried. "I thought he'd agree if he knew why." He tapped the page. "That's not consent. That's forgery." Kyle shifted. "Your Honor, I didn't know." Ms. Alvarez cut him off. "Mr. Watkins, your bar received the proceeds within 24 hours of the wire. You signed a deposit slip yourself. Ignorance is not a legal defense." The judge leaned back. "Let me see that." He studied the bank slip, tracing the signature with his pen. "This matches your name, Mr. Watkins." Kyle swallowed hard. Then Ms. Alvarez called Big Ray. He stepped up in his work boots, holding the VIN rubbings like holy scripture. "I'm a certified foreman," he said. "I supervise that restoration. VN on the Eldorado matches the rubbings I stamped. That's Mark's car, no one else's." The judge nodded, satisfied. "Noted." Then Ms. Alvarez pulled out her final exhibit, the injunction order Nov 27 and photo of the car's recovery Nov 29. Despite their actions, my client followed lawful remedy. No confrontation, no destruction, no threats. Just patience and paper. The judge's tone softened. Mr. Jennings, do you wish to make a statement? I stood. My knees cracked, but my voice didn't. I worked 30 years for that car, I said. When I lost my pension, I built one myself. They took it without asking, and I could have gone loud. But I wanted this instead. I gestured around the courtroom. Proof that a man doesn't have to raise his voice to be heard. The judge nodded slowly, his pen scratching across his notes. Then the verdict came. The court grants replevin and quiet title to Mr. Jennings, assigns a constructive trust over the $40,000 in proceeds, and orders restitution. The bar's financial records will be audited within 7 days. Attorney's fees awarded to plaintiff. Ms. Alvarez smiled faintly. Tara wept into her hands. Kyle muttered something I couldn't hear, but it didn't matter anymore. As the gavel struck, a weight lifted off my chest. For the first time in months, I breathed without counting. Outside, the December wind was sharp, clean. Tara caught up to me on the courthouse steps. Mark, she said softly, after all this, are we done? I looked at her. The woman who once shared my winters, now just another lesson in documentation. No, I said. We're balanced. I walked to my Eldorado, opened the door, and slid behind the wheel. The seat creaked like it remembered me. In the rearview mirror, I saw Tara watching me go, smaller, quieter, finally out of frame. When the engine started, it didn't purr. It sang "Justice Isn't Loud." It's just tuned right. December 10th. 1 week after the hearing, the snow had hardened into glass. It crunched under my boots as I walked to the garage, a sound that felt like punctuation, sharp, final, clean. The Eldorado sat there waiting, covered in a soft frost. I'd taped a checklist to the wall: oil, coolant, battery, hope. Beside it, my binder, now twice as thick, labeled neatly, case closed, Deck 3, 2025. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns out. Precision stays. That morning, Kyle wired $10,000 to my account. Partial restitution. Ms. Alvarez had drafted the agreement herself. A confession of judgment for the full balance, secured by the bar's point-of-sale receipts and a lien on his equipment. One missed payment, and the sheriff's trucks would roll up like a second parade. He texted once, just 2 words, "We're square." I didn't reply. At noon, I met Ms. Alvarez at her office to sign the closure filings. She smiled, a rare kind of professional satisfaction. "Dexter Motors settled your fees," she said. "They'd rather pay you than face a licensing audit." "Fair trade," I said. When I left, she handed me one last envelope. "Keep this in the car," she said. Title reissued. Your name only. It was embossed, crisp, perfect. My signature, my ink, my right restored. Back home, I opened the garage and let sunlight spill across the hood. I ran my hand along the fender, feeling the cold metal pulse back warmth, like memory. For the first time in months, the house felt like mine again. Tara had moved out quietly on deck 7th. She'd left a voicemail the night before. "I'll be staying with Mom for a while. You'll get the rest of your money." "I'm sorry." No tears, no promises, just closure on speakerphone. I boxed up what she left behind: perfume bottles, her winter coats, a photo of us from the Labor Day parade, me in overalls, her in a sundress, smiling beside the Eldorado. I stared at it for a long time, then slipped it into a folder marked Past Projects. When I changed the locks again that evening, the click of the new cylinder sounded like punctuation at the end of a sentence. The next day, Deck 12th, the neighborhood came alive again. Mrs. Dorsey baked cookies to celebrate the return of local justice. She waved from across the street. "You kept it classy, Mark. Men like you don't raise your voice. You raise your paperwork," I laughed. Best advice I've ever followed. The Eldorado gleamed under the winter sun as I backed it down the driveway for the first time since November. Neighbors came out waving. Kids pointed. Somebody whistled. The city smelled like salt and exhaust and something almost holy. When I parked back in the garage, I shut off the engine and just sat there, hands on the wheel. The heater clicked, soft and steady. I thought about every night I'd sat in this same seat, staring at an empty bay, wondering how everything I'd built could vanish in one transaction. But it hadn't vanished. It had just gone through litigation. Revenge, I realized, wasn't fire. It was paperwork done right. Before heading inside, I placed a small brass plaque on the garage wall, right above the workbench. It read, "Rebuilt twice, first with steel, then with patience." That night I poured myself a glass of bourbon, just one, and stood at the kitchen window watching the snow. The house was quiet again, not empty, just quiet in the way peace sounds when it's earned. I checked my bank app before bed. Wire confirmed. $10,000 cleared, balance steady. In my notebook, I wrote the final line of the ledger, deck 10, engine tuned. Case settled. Freedom maintained. Then I closed the book, turned off the light and whispered to the dark, "Some people pray for closure." I filed for it. December 20th. The city was draped in Christmas lights, but everything looked colder than it should. I wasn't going to Marla's house that night, but word travels fast in Detroit. Mrs. Dorsey texted me first. "They're doing another family dinner. Smaller crowd this time." I could almost picture it. Marla's dining room full of polite smiles and clinking forks, trying to scrape the past clean. Tara would be there, probably sitting at the far end, avoiding Kyle's eyes. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. I had closure framed in my glove compartment, the reissued title sealed and stamped with my name alone. That afternoon, I took the Eldorado out for a drive. The city was quiet. The roads were slick glass. Radio off, heater humming, wipers ticking like a metronome. Passing the old GM plant, I slowed down. The gates were chained now, rust eating the letters. But I remembered my first day there, 1968, when my hands still smelled like metal. I stared at the photo again. Kyle, mid-toast. And I imagined the knock on the door, the server handing him that thick envelope, the silence that followed. The soufflé of pride collapsing in real time. The irony was too sharp not to savor. I didn't reply. I just smiled and turned off my phone. Outside, the snow was falling sideways, carried by the wind off the river. I stepped into the garage, ran my palm over the Eldorado's hood. It was warm, alive. I could still see my reflection, older, smaller, but still there. On the workbench sat my ledger. I opened it to the last page and wrote in ink that bled just enough to look deliberate. Deck 20. Case closed. Balance restored. Drove 2 laps around the block, and I did. The first lap took me past the pit stop. The neon sign was still broken. Only KYL flickered against the snow. The windows were dark, chairs stacked, a closed sign crooked in the door. I parked across the street for a moment. Somewhere inside that building was a man counting receipts that now legally belonged to me. The second lap brought me past Marla's house. The lights inside glowed gold, silhouettes moving slowly behind lace curtains. The kind of scene you'd think meant peace, unless you knew the soundtrack underneath it was regret. I didn't stop, didn't wave, just kept driving. When I pulled back into my own driveway, I let the engine idle. The sound filled the garage like a heartbeat that finally had a rhythm again. I leaned back, closed my eyes and said it, the line that had been waiting for the right silence. "You didn't lose me. Tara, you gave me away." I shut off the ignition. The engine ticked, cooling down. Outside, the snow kept falling. The quiet kind that buries the past evenly, without choosing sides. And in that moment, surrounded by chrome, cold air and truth, I realized revenge hadn't changed me at all. It had just returned me to factory settings, back to the man who builds, who documents, who finishes what he starts. Detroit men don't burn things down. We rebuild them, so everyone remembers what they destroyed.